The day Ethan Cole bought the garage, people laughed so hard one mechanic nearly dropped his cigarette into a puddle of leaking oil. The building looked like it had survived a war nobody remembered. Rusted shutters hung crooked from broken hinges. Half the roof sagged inward. The faded sign above the entrance only showed 3 letters through decades of dirt and sun damage. Rats moved through the weeds growing beside piles of twisted scrap metal. Even the stray dogs avoided sleeping there. And standing in front of it all was Billionaire CEO Victor Langford, smiling like a man who had just committed the smartest robbery of his life. "You really want this dump?" Victor asked while adjusting his expensive watch. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away." Ethan stared at the garage quietly. His worn boots were soaked from rainwater dripping through holes in the roof. Behind him, his old pickup truck coughed smoke into the cold evening air. "How much?" Ethan asked again. Victor smirked. $1,000. The mechanics nearby burst into laughter. One shouted, "That place costs more to destroy than to buy." Another yelled, "He's buying a graveyard." Victor folded the contract slowly. "You know why I'm selling it cheap? Because nobody can save it. Every businessman who touched this place went bankrupt. The land's worthless. The equipment's dead. And the city plans to build a highway bypass next year. This place will disappear." Ethan looked at the cracked concrete floor inside the garage. Old tools were scattered everywhere. Dust covered every surface like snow. Then he noticed something strange. The hydraulic lift in the center wasn't rusty. That made no sense. Everything else was falling apart, but the lift looked newer than the building itself. Victor noticed Ethan staring. "Don't waste your imagination," Victor said sharply. "That thing barely works." Ethan slowly smiled. "I'll take it." The laughter became louder. Victor signed the papers immediately before Ethan could change his mind. The billionaire practically shoved the contract into his hands. And that night, as thunder rolled across the city, Ethan sat alone inside the broken garage holding the keys to the worst property anyone had ever seen. But while everyone else saw junk, Ethan saw a secret. Because 10 years earlier, before Victor became famous, before the billion-dollar company, before private jets and magazine covers, Victor Langford had been a mechanic. And this had been his first garage. Which meant something inside this place mattered enough for Victor to hide it. Ethan spent the next 3 days cleaning nonstop. He hauled away mountains of scrap. He fixed broken wiring. He patched leaks with cheap metal sheets. At night, he slept in the office beside an old heater that barely worked. On the 4th night, he finally inspected the hydraulic lift. The bolts underneath were newer than the rest. That alone was suspicious. He grabbed a wrench and removed the metal panel beneath the lift. And froze. Underneath the garage floor was a hidden steel staircase. Ethan's heartbeat accelerated. He climbed down carefully into darkness. At the bottom was an underground room. Not small. Massive. Rows of covered machines lined the walls beneath thick dust sheets. Industrial compressors. Precision cutting equipment. Custom engine building stations. High-performance diagnostic computers worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ethan stared in disbelief. This wasn't junk. This was a hidden performance workshop. Then he noticed the logo on the wall. VL Motorsports. Victor's original company name before he rebranded into Langford Automotive International. Ethan slowly pieced it together. Victor never sold him a junk garage. He sold him the evidence of where he truly started. And for some reason, he wanted it buried forever. The next morning Ethan searched old business records online from the public library. What he found shocked him. 15 years earlier, Victor Langford had secretly built illegal street racing engines from this garage before becoming a respected CEO. Rumors claimed one experimental engine design disappeared after a deadly racing accident killed 2 drivers. The project vanished. So did the workshop. And now Ethan understood why Victor wanted the garage gone cheap and fast. But Ethan didn't care about old scandals. He cared about what sat underground. Millions of dollars in equipment. And one unfinished engine blueprint hanging on the wall. An engine nobody had ever completed. Over the next 6 months, Ethan worked harder than he ever had in his life. By day, he repaired ordinary customer vehicles upstairs to survive. By night, he rebuilt the underground workshop. Nobody knew. Not even the local mechanics who still mocked him every morning. They called him the Junkyard King. Ethan ignored them. He hired 2 struggling mechanics nobody else wanted. A former welder named Marcus who had lost his job after an injury, and a young genius named Leo who had been expelled from engineering school after fighting a professor who stole his design ideas. Together, they rebuilt everything. The underground workshop came alive again. Machines roared. Sparks flew. Engines screamed through the night. And slowly, cars started arriving. Not ordinary cars. Rare cars. Performance cars. Luxury cars dealers couldn't fix. Customers came secretly after hearing rumors about a tiny garage where impossible repairs happened overnight. A Ferrari dealership sent them a dead engine they had already declared destroyed. Ethan rebuilt it in 13 hours. A collector brought a flooded Lamborghini everyone considered scrap. 3 days later it drove out smoother than factory condition. Word spread fast. Too fast. One rainy evening, Victor Langford himself arrived unexpectedly in a black Rolls-Royce. The entire garage went silent. Victor stepped out wearing a tailored coat, staring at the repaired cars outside. His confident smile faded. "How?" he asked quietly. Ethan wiped grease from his hands. "You sold me more than a building." Victor's eyes hardened immediately. "You went downstairs. So that's why you sold it cheap." Victor walked slowly through the garage. "You should have left that place buried." Ethan crossed his arms. "Why?" "Afraid people might discover where your empire really began." Victor stepped closer. "You have no idea what's connected to that workshop." "Then explain." Victor looked genuinely disturbed for the first time. "That engine blueprint downstairs, destroy it." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "No." Victor lowered his voice. "That design killed people." Ethan shook his head. "No. Bad drivers killed people." Victor suddenly slammed his fist onto a toolbox. "You think you're smarter than me?" The room became silent. Victor stared directly into Ethan's eyes. "I built an empire because I knew when to bury dangerous things." Then he pulled out a checkbook. $1 million. Ethan laughed softly. Victor's face darkened. "You should take the offer." "No. 5 million. Marcus and Leo stared in disbelief. Ethan still shook his head. Victor slowly closed the checkbook. Then he smiled again. But this time it felt cold. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The next week became a nightmare. Inspectors suddenly appeared every day. Fire department violations. Noise complaints. Tax investigations. Power outages. Customers mysteriously canceled appointments. Even suppliers stopped answering calls. Victor was crushing him. Piece by piece. One night Ethan sat alone in the underground workshop staring at unpaid bills covering the desk. Marcus had already warned him they couldn't survive another month. Then Leo walked in holding an old hard drive he found hidden inside one of the machines. "You need to see this." The drive contained dozens of files from Victor's old workshop. Blueprints. Financial records. Videos. And one unfinished recording labeled Project Titan. Ethan opened it. Victor appeared on screen 15 years younger, standing beside the experimental engine. "This engine changes everything," young Victor said in the video. "No manufacturer will ever compete with this power-to-weight ratio." Then the recording glitched. Suddenly shouting erupted off camera. The video shook violently. A car engine exploded somewhere nearby. Then came screams. The footage cut out. Leo whispered, "That's the accident." Ethan replayed the final seconds repeatedly. Something felt wrong. Then he noticed it. The engine in the crash footage wasn't the same design as the blueprint on the wall. Victor lied. The dangerous engine wasn't Ethan's blueprint. Someone had swapped the design. Which meant Victor wasn't hiding failure. He was hiding theft. The next morning Ethan dug deeper through the files until he discovered contracts proving Victor's former business partner, Daniel Mercer, had stolen Ethan's blueprint design years earlier before the fatal accident. Victor buried the entire workshop afterward to protect the company before becoming CEO. But Ethan also discovered something bigger. The original Titan engine blueprint, the unfinished one hanging downstairs, was actually stable. And revolutionary. If completed, it could outperform every high-end engine in the industry. That's when Ethan understood everything. Victor wasn't afraid of the past. He was afraid Ethan would finish what he couldn't. 3 weeks later, Ethan revealed the rebuilt Titan prototype at a small underground racing expo outside the city. Nobody expected much. His garage still looked like a ruin from the outside. But when Ethan unveiled the engine, the room went silent. The compact design produced impossible numbers. Horsepower levels that rivaled hypercars worth millions. And it ran smoother than anything experts had seen. Investors surrounded Ethan instantly. Mechanics filmed the engine nonstop. One famous automotive influencer uploaded a video titled, "The Junk Garage That Humiliated Billion-Dollar Companies." By morning, the video had 12 million views. Everything changed overnight. Customers flooded the garage. Investors offered partnerships. Performance brands begged for meetings. Even celebrities started arriving with custom build requests. Within 2 months, Ethan expanded into a larger warehouse facility. Then another. Then another. He launched Titan Performance Industries using the original underground blueprint as its foundation. And every time reporters asked how it started, he smiled and answered the same way. With a $1,000 garage nobody wanted. Victor Langford watched it all happen from his office tower in silence. His executives panicked as Titan engines began outperforming Langford Automotive's flagship models. Stock prices dipped. Investors questioned leadership. Social media exploded with comparisons between the billionaire CEO and the former mechanic living in a garage. Then came the final blow. An international racing team signed an exclusive contract with Ethan's company after Titan engines shattered speed records during private testing. The news spread globally within hours. Victor finally snapped. He stormed into Ethan's new headquarters unannounced during a press event. Cameras instantly turned toward him. Ethan stood calmly on stage beside the Titan engine display. Victor pointed furiously. "That engine belongs to me!" The crowd gasped. Ethan walked forward slowly. "No," he said quietly. "You buried it." Victor's face turned red. "I built that company! And abandoned the people who helped you!" Reporters moved closer. Flashes exploded everywhere. Victor tried speaking again, but Ethan interrupted him. "You sold me a junk garage because you thought the past made you weak." The room became completely silent. Ethan stepped beside the Titan engine. "But the truth is, the empire you built started right there in that dirty garage you were ashamed of." Victor's expression slowly changed. Not anger. Regret. Real regret. For the first time in years, the billionaire looked exhausted. Then Ethan did something nobody expected. He held out a small rusty wrench. Victor stared at it silently. Ethan smiled faintly. "You left this downstairs." Victor recognized it instantly. The very first wrench he ever bought as a young mechanic. The cameras captured everything. Victor's hands trembled slightly as he took it. And in that moment, every person watching understood something shocking. The billionaire CEO hadn't sold the garage because it was worthless. He sold it because he couldn't face the man he used to be. 6 months later, Titan Performance Industries officially surpassed Langford Automotive in performance sales. The old garage still stood untouched at the edge of the city. Ethan refused to demolish it. Instead, he restored it exactly as it once looked, keeping every dent, every stain, every scar. Because that broken place had built an empire. And sometimes the world's greatest opportunities don't look valuable at all. Sometimes they look abandoned. Forgotten. Worthless. Until the right person sees what everyone else missed.